Yo, what's going on, guys? Today we're gonna work on this back, and on this upper back we have a lot of tension, and we take it piece by piece. So we're gonna first start off on this right side, and as you can hear a lot of that densification that's located on the shoulder. Now we're starting off by simply warming up, and that's what we're doing is we're feeling, palpating, and figuring out where a lot of this tension is. Now obviously a lot of this tension is in the mid back, but we're going to go ahead and bring the arm back, work in this shoulder blade area, and feel out the process. Now, as you can see, we are angling the arm in a different position, and so what we're trying to do is we're trying to find the areas of densification in the arm's position right now, and what that does is it brings out different areas of densification. If we work a little bit more in here in the mid, and we won't feel as much tension as we did earlier, it lets us know that when the arm is in certain positions, it's going to cause shoulder pain in those positions. So he may not feel any pain when he has his arm bent backwards, but it doesn't mean that the densification isn't currently present there. So what we're trying to do is we're going to try to alleviate this back by putting the arms in different positions and then detailing them thoroughly. We use tucks in therapy to inhibit parasympathetic with taps with the wood. It's kind of hard to describe, but there's certain areas that feel like they alleviate a lot more when I use tucks-in, which is hammer therapy, versus just vibrations. And that's typically done when there is deep densification, and when it's just very light, the hammers might be too much, and so we just use the vibrational therapy, which can be 10'd. But as you can see, the body is looking much more relaxed, and we shifted the arm position again. And when we shift the arm position into this new area, we're finding a lot of densification in the rear delt. And so here I am, I'm shifting positions, and I'm trying to feel and see what's going on over here. On a side note, also forgive me for the bad auto white balancing. I'm using new tech to go ahead and work through, so you will see some of the light switch. And I've already corrected this issue for future uploads, but for the most part for this one, we're going to go ahead and leave it just as is. And as you can hear, we shifted the arm once again, and you can hear that deep densification in the mid rhomboid. And it seems like whenever there's any overhead press that this knot pops out, and it's actually going to be causing a lot of the pain for the shoulder. So we're going to use the fascia blaster or shotgun to try to find as much densification as possible. As you can see, we can move some of the tissue, and you can see visually that some of those tissue areas are a little bit more tight. And here I am just getting into the work. Sorry for getting in the way a little bit. But really feeling with the forearm, able to see how the body's reacting. And feeling for those cues. So there's a bunch of different kinds of cues. There's visual, there's audible. The one that's the hardest to capture is what I feel. But we're tracing this tension upwards and really finding it. So you can hear some of the plastic rubbing over the adhesions, and that can be a little bit tough to really to relax it, I guess is the easiest term. I was thinking more like liquefy through the thixotrophic work with the hands and with the heated scraper sometimes. but this one was a huge mound that just kind of needed to get worked out. Mostly with the hands is what I felt. Now here we're using perpendicular movement, so meaning that we are going cross fiber and we're going in the opposite direction of the flow. So since the flow of the muscle is going to be going upwards, we are going side to side, and we're trying to cross fiber some of the densification so that way we can bring some alleviation. And then once that starts to loosen up, then we can go with the fibers, which we're going upward. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and apply cup, and we're going to add dynamic cupping. So what we're doing is we are moving the cup up and down, following the fibers, and finding densification. We're using negative pressure, which is going to pull apart the tissue and move the cup around to give the most alleviation possible, because sometimes providing positive pressure can be a little bit repetitive and sometimes it won't give any results. So what we have to do is we have to actually use the cup with negative pressure, which will help alleviate some of that tension, and so we won't have to put so much pressure on the body. It can be a little bit more painful in some instances, but it makes it a lot easier on the client over time, and it makes it easier for us as well. Now after taking out the cups, we can do a polish, check it out and see how it feels. And I'm able to dig much more deeper, and I can actually feel where the adhesion starts. And so this helps take over the instance of trying to work on the top layer and immediately relieves it, but allows me to focus more on this deeper tension, which we are doing right here. Now, as you can hear deep densification. We're going to try to readjust the arm forward, and this is where we're starting to dig in even more so we're extending that adhesion, that knot, the densification in the rhomboid area. We're extending the shoulder forward to get more of the extension, and then we're using again the cup to break up that densification in the area. Now after removing the cup, we're going to go ahead and polish over again. Had a slight interruption at this point, but we come back and immediately we hear less densification. Can still see a little bit of tension, but it's definitely improving. Now we can see that there's a big pull that's kind of rounding around the shoulder blade and leading up into that serratus anterior. I'm pulling back the camera just a little bit so that way you can see what I'm talking about. But we're gonna round around the shoulder blade, and this is where I'm finding that major pull. Now right here, as I'm moving around, you can see how much densification and pull there really is underneath my elbow. And all of this is going to make it so much more difficult for anyone to be extending their arm forward. And so this is why you see me work the way that I do, and I move the arm in different positions. Now what we're going to do is we're going to move into myofascial decompression, aka cupping, and we are going to be leaving them statically. So before we use dynamic cupping, in this instance we're using static. The reason why is we're going to be tracing out the pain all the way through the body, and so we will place the cups in all the areas that all the tension is at, and then we'll leave those cups on for about 5 minutes and then remove them. After removing the cups, you can see that there's not a lot of discolorization, which is really, really good. The less colorization that we see, the better, because that usually means that if you bruise very, very easily, then there is typically a vasoconstriction, and that typically is what I consider a form of fascia when you're talking about like muscular injuries. And the vasoconstriction will cause you to get bruised easier. So if we don't have any vasoconstriction, you'll get these normal looking cut marks that don't leave any colorization. Moving on, we start to continue to the other side. As we polish through the last side, you could see that there was less audible cues, and there was a lot less visual cues as well. As we move on to this side, you can see how deep and dense and fibrotic the rhomboids are. So we're going to follow that same pattern. We start with the arm behind the back and polish in the rhomboid area using the fascia blaster just like we did, but there was no need for it because we didn't feel anything with it almost immediately. So we stick to manual work with the elbow and the hands. Using tucks-in therapy, again, just like we did previously, to help inhibit that parasympathetic response. And so that way, if there's any deeper tension, we can find it a little bit easier. As you can see, it looks a lot more easier to work through, and there's less audible cues. Just with some simple taps, we see a major improvement. Now we begin a full back polish right here. Really trying to check the serratus anterior, the lat, everything seems fine. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put the arm back in the next position, which is right next to the side on the table, next to the body. And we're just doing that just so that way we can see how it does, adjusting the light, making sure that you guys can see everything. This one was actually shot a lot later than I normally shoot, and I wanted to see how this light would help out in the event that I have to shoot any late night shots, because before we would actually have a lot of flickering and it would make the footage unusable. But now it seems that this light has worked and has found the solution for that issue with the camera work anyways. But as you can hear, there's less densification than as before, and now it's more in the center, whereas before it was the entire rhomboid, almost paraspinal area. It's more condensed now, and as we hear those audible cues begin to dissipate, this lets us know that it's okay for us to move forward as it dissipates with time, just like that. Is it perfect? No, but it's a definite improvement. Again, polishing and feeling in the lat. The lat's completely fine. That's what I'm really gearing towards with my left hand right there that you're seeing me move. I'm really testing the waters and trying to see how it feels, because just like the other side, we did feel a large amount of restriction in the serratus anterior and latissimus dorsi area, but it seems like on this side that it's a lot more in the upper trap. Now what we're doing right here is we're doing a mobilization to the scapula. We're just moving it, and judging by the way that the serratus anterior and lat felt, it made it seem like it was a possibility to mobilize the scapula, and this is going to help with the systematic basically, that he can move the way that he needs to, because sometimes you have to move the tissue and mobilize it so that way the body can reorganize and say, hey, it's okay to move. And so that's what we're doing here, but not everything is always ready. That is why when you look at the opposite side, we didn't mobilize, because at that point it didn't necessarily feel ready, and we didn't have enough time to double check everything on that side. But since this side is not as bad, it allowed us to go ahead and mobilize. Now, while we didn't have any auto flickering, we still had the auto Y balance set to the encoder, and that's why we see all the shift in colorization right here. But going through here, we're gonna go ahead and use the fascia blaster. You might have heard some ringing in this area, and that's why, because we are setting the heated scraper to warm up while we were fascia blasting, and here we go. It's been a little bit of time. It's not very long for it to get warmed up completely. I'm letting it warm up in my other hand while palpating. And here we go. So this is going to help with the thixotrophic effect. Considering that the other side isn't as dense, the heat and the scraping is a lot more effective on this side versus going straight into static cupping. Sometimes when you have to use static cupping like immediately, it's usually because that side's usually feeling very, very taut. The tissue isn't easily mobilized underneath the hand, and so you have to justify sometimes going with dynamic cupping, or if you want to do maybe heating and scraping. On this side, it seems like this is going to be probably the most effective treatment, and versus the other side, it was more dynamic cupping immediately. Feeling that top area, you can see how we would want to use the tuxin therapy for that parasympathetic effect, because this top area did have a lot of audible cues early on. As you can hear, the audible cues up here have been reduced immensely. And just the whole tissue, just working through the entire shoulder, you can see how much more relaxed it is. It's looking really good. We're going to move the arm forward and repeat the process. Now immediately as we move the arm forward, you can hear the audible cues start to return. And it's not that they were returning because of any kind of injury or anything. It's just the different arm positions will present different issues in the tissue. And so by figuring that out, we can move the arm into different positions, as we have been doing this whole entire session, and then working thoroughly. And the way that the tissue felt similar as the other side did early on, and so we decided to go with dynamic cupping for this particular issue that is being felt on this side. And you can see that it is a erector spinae issue, because it's not just in the mid area, it's pulling all the way into that mid and lower back. And while we do want to focus on the whole back eventually, today we are just focusing on the upper back. So now what we're doing is we're going to do static cupping. We're going to trace the tension all the way through the body, and then leave the cups on for about 5 minutes, and then remove them and check out the results. After 5 minutes, we go ahead and remove the cups, and then we will see that this side is looking pretty good. The top cup right here of the bigger one is actually looking really, really good. The one below it is looking a little bit darker red, a little bit more than I'd like. But again, that's going to be pulling towards that mid back area and lower back. But we take the cups off, and as you can see, it doesn't look too bad. No deep dark purple spots or anything of that nature, which is a really good sign. And it's a really good upper back polish. So this is how we use the different mobilization of the arm to polish out the entire shoulder. If you like this, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one.